Hello and welcome! Warhammer 40k 10th edition is right around the corner, and Games Workshop has been dropping a lot of different army previews once a day for the last couple weeks for the way armies are going to play in 10th edition before their codexes come out. I want to cover those, but I should preface, I'm still relatively new to the hobby. I didn't start getting into 40k until 8th edition, and I didn't start actually buying a lot of boxes until 9th edition when I got the Indominus box. So I am not the biggest authority on this, but I do have a newer perspective for the hobby that hopefully will make these videos interesting. I'm really excited for 10th edition, but if you're looking for more of an in-depth breakdown from older hats that are used to the hobby more and have played longer, you can look into either Auspice Tactics or Bricky, who do great breakdowns for these previews every day that they release. And I'll link both of them in the description. They're both great 40k YouTubers, and Bricky does a lot of other stuff too. But absolutely think you should check those out if you're even remotely interested in more perspectives, but especially a perspective of somebody that is a bit more hardcore into the gaming side of the hobby. As personally, I play a lot more Kill Team than I do 40k, but I do love my Blood Angels, and I'm really excited for their rules when those come out for their detachment that's going to be separate from Space Marines. But anyway, let's get into these. And again, we're not going super in-depth into everything, but talking more about how it looks like the army's going to play and whether I'm excited for it or whether I'm not. If that perspective is interesting to you, stick around. And if not, well, thanks for watching up to this point, I guess. So we're starting off with Space Marines, of course, and they shall know no fear. These are, of course, the poster boys of 40k. They are your big, powered, armored. They're going to fight their way through. There's a ton of different chapters of Space Marines, but this is mostly focused on Ultramarines and the ones that follow the Codex Astartes. So this will be things like Salamanders. This will be things like Iron Hands. Although Iron Hands are chaos. I don't know why. I meant Imperial Fists. Don't let the Fist players know that I said Iron Hands, please. But that'll get into all of these. And their rules are pretty interesting, I think. So we have Combat Doctrines, of course, Devastator Doctrine, Tactical Doctrine, Assault Doctrine. As a Blood Angel player, there were a couple of these that mattered way more to me than the others, and it was Assault Doctrine. That was the main one. Tactical Doctrine is okay, because it would let me get a charge if I needed to fall back. That's okay for me. Assault Doctrine would have been what I really wanted, but Blood Angels are going to have their own separate one. So if I was to play Fists or Raven Guard or Ultramarines, honestly, having these and having them until the start of your next command phase, that Doctrine is active and you get to choose it, you don't have to cycle through them anymore, which is what I had to do to get to Assault. It's what I wanted. That was my baby. And I had to put up with the others where, yeah, the shooting was okay. I'll do it, but I want to get in there with my Blood Angels. I don't want to just be, back here shooting or falling back and shooting. I want to be charging. I want to be getting in there. And so Assault Doctrine was my bread and butter. But the ability to choose, as compared to having to go through a set rotation, makes it way more optimal. It means that whatever army you're up against, you're now able to just choose, hey, this turn, doing this. Next turn, I'm probably going to need to fall back more. So I'll use Tactical then. Or, hey, we got to get across this board. It's turn 3. The game's about to be over. I have to get across this board, but I still need to shoot. Devastator Doctrine. Let's go. And so I really like this change. I think it's really solid. And when we get into the data sheets, again, I'm not a great expert. I'm not even going to try to pretend to be. I really like the way these data sheets are laid out. The movement and all the stats being up here right at the top as compared to, I've got 9th edition codex here so I could show the differences, and maybe I should have waited till we got to Tyranids, but having it be lines up in the corner up there by the name, that doesn't jump out near as much as this does. This is obvious. This is quick. I don't have to hunt down, where was the toughness again? As, again, sort of a new player, I've also got an 8th edition codex here. So I can show what the data sheets look like in 8th edition, because I did buy some codexes in 8th, and it was a little bit more pronounced there. So I like that, and I think that they're kind of pulling back to that. I didn't get to play a lot of 8th, because again, I didn't really start buying boxes until Indominus had come out, but I did play a little bit of 8th. It was fun, and I liked it, and I think 9th was a little bit more complicated in some ways, but this makes it a whole lot more streamlined in a way that I really like. Really excited for. All of this is great. Numbers are good here. Land Raiders, they're going to do some decent damage, but it's not going to be a lot because that's not your main use for them, right? Your main goal for them is being able to get transports done with them. I like the assault ramp ability. I think that's really cool. Each time a unit disembarks from this model, after it's made a normal move, that unit is still eligible to declare a charge. If that's on Land Raiders and Rhinos, hopefully, for Blood Angels, I'm going to be set. So will all of you Space Wolves players. But Land Raider having good damage, that's nothing new. But I like that they kept the tracks. I think it's a really solid data sheet. Again, I didn't run a lot of Land Raiders because my goal was to run a lot of Sang Guard, and Blade Guard. But it's good, right? It's a good data sheet. I think when we're looking at what it gives us, this is hopefully the back of the data sheet where we can see, hey, on the back you have your war gear options and you have your unit composition and what makes up a unit for it and that it is a transport. And that's really cool. And again, the fact that it can just carry Astartes. It doesn't have to be Firstborn. It's just Astartes. That's great. Jump Pack, Wolf, and Gravis or Terminator takes up space of 2 and Centurions take up 3, which makes perfect sense. Really like that you can carry those. Awesome. Super stoked for that. Loving Land Raider. And then, of course, we get Gilliman's data sheet. And again, I'm not going to go through all of it here. You can go to Brekkie or Auspex Tactics if you want that. But this is like a short breakdown of each faction. And Gilliman looks really good. I like a lot of what I'm seeing here about attaching different characters to units so that you have to burn through the unit before you can get to them unless they have... Like, they don't have the epic hero, or they don't have lone... Where is it? It's on here somewhere. Lone Operative, which is really cool. Lone Operative to hook them up there. I like it a lot. And Gilliman himself, he's a very strong unit. The ability to just come back on a 3-up is still really strong. He's got that 4-up invuln. He's good. I don't think Gilliman got hurt enough to be anything to worry about here, and I think that he's still going to be very solid. I like Gilliman's data sheet, and it gives me a lot of hope for some of the other named, like, big characters, not just Primarchs, but, like, big characters. And we're going to see a couple later, but we don't get to see as many of the big characters as we get weapon spotlights here, and Heavy Assault Gatling Gun. Heavy Onslaught, that is, sorry, Gatling Gun. It's good. Devastating Wounds. Causing it to deal mortal wounds on crit rolls. Crit wounds, that's good. I like that. That's solid. It's laid out in a really good way. It's pretty easy to explain to people. Yeah, hey, why I've got devastating wounds on this. What does that mean? Oh, it means if you get a crit wound, if you get a crit on your wound roll, you deal a mortal wound. Well, what's a mortal wound? Well, that's a wound they can't save from. Oh, perfect. Nice. As compared to some of the stuff in 9th edition, which was like, yeah, if the moon is right, and you roll 3 6s, then you get 4 auto crits. Like, and I'm being a bit pedantic here. I understand that's not exactly what it said, but 9th edition could get a little wordy and a little confusing because they were trying to work around rules lawyers, and I get it, but man, sometimes. And look, Kill Team has that problem too sometimes. I'm not going to, like, hey, yeah, you can fall back and you can charge, but only if this covers obscuring. Again, I know that's not an actual rule. Don't crucify me in the comments. But there are some rules in Kill Team that are really interesting because they're worded a lot like the 9th edition rule. And then we get the Heavy Laser Destroyer, 72-inch range. That's bigger than just about any regular size board at anywhere from 1,000 to 2K that you're going to be running. But still, yeah, no, you got them. They're within your range. And then, of course, we get a stratagem for each one. Only a death does duty end. And we're spending more time on this one than we're going to spend on the others because this was like the layout. This was the start. But during fight phase, I love that all these have a win. This is when you can use it. Only then. Fight phase, just after an enemy unit is selected as targets. Target one Adeptus Astartes unit from your army that was selected as a target of one or more of the attacking unit's attacks. Till the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit is destroyed, if that model has not fought this phase, do not remove it from play. The destroyed model can fight after the attacking model's unit has finished making its attacks and is then removed from play. And again, hoping I get this for my Blood Angels. Because being able to fight after being destroyed, yeah, it's 2 CP, but in a bad situation, that could change everything. That could turn everything around. So, we'll see. It's a really good stratagem, even though it does cost 2 CP. And then, of course, you get your hey, here's a book you might want to check out if you want to play this army, which I think it's a good idea. It is trying to sell books, right? But I also think it's a good idea for somebody that looks at this and goes, you know, that could be cool. I kind of like that. How do I get into that? And then, hey, here's a book where you can do that. And then a couple other books you can check out, you know, if you want to. And then just, hey, here's the rest of them. So that's Space Marines. I think Space Marines are in a pretty good spot here. Obviously, we only have a little bit of the rules, but based on the army rules and the detachment rules, which this is just the detachment, we don't actually get to see the full army rules, but the Oath of Moment faction ability is here. It's not in there for some reason, but it is very good, and we're going to get into the stuff for Tyranids as well. Is it in there and I missed it? No, it's not in here. Okay, that's a weird choice not to put it in here. And just link to it. But if your army faction is adept to starties, at the start of your command phase, select 1 unit from your opponent's army. To the start of your next command phase, each time a model from your army with this ability makes an attack that targets that enemy unit, you can reroll the hit roll, and you can reroll the wound roll. But you only get it on 1 unit, so it feels pretty good. I like it. So after that, we have NIDS. And as we saw, I like the NIDS. I like the NIDS a lot. I had just started collecting NIDS when they announced Leviathan, so I stopped collecting NIDS because I'm waiting for Leviathan. But, so right off the bat, army rules, synapse. Some Tyranids serve as synaptic conduits or nodal relays through which a portion of the hive mind's iron will flows, overriding the natural instincts of the swarm to direct the teeming warrior beast to function as a single gestalt organism on the battlefield. Your army faction's Tyranids, while a Tyranids unit from your army is within 6 inches of 1 or more synapse models from your army, that unit is said to be within synapse range of your army. Each time a Tyranids unit from your army takes a battle shock test, if it's within synapse range of your army, take that test on 3d6 instead of 2d6. So, really hard to break if you're within range of synapse, but also means that someone can just shoot down your synapse, and then suddenly you're a lot easier to break. So I think it's really cool, really balanced. Shadow in the Warp is the other one, which I find it really interesting. They get 2 army rules, but so do some of the others. But if your army faction is Tyranids once per battle in either player's command phase, I almost say combat phase, if 1 or more units from your army with this ability are on the battlefield, you can unleash the Shadow in the Warp. When you do, each enemy unit on the battlefield must take a battle shock test. That's very strong. Very strong again. And it's only once per battle, so you can't do it every turn. But if you have the right moment and you spring this, you can clear the board, and I love that. But also, you might just fail. It might just fail. It's really strong, but there's a lot of ways to get around battle shock tests that we've seen throughout the rest of these previews, and there's probably even more, if I had to guess, in the full index, and hopefully in the codexes to come too. But it means that this is really strong, but it's not broken, and that's something that I think people are kind of overreacting a little bit. That's another reason why I wanted to make this video, because I've seen a lot of overreactions on the internet from people with 10th edition, because we don't have a lot of information yet, but people are treating it as if we know everything. The Gene Stealers, they just have their claws and talons, of course. They're brought into 1 weapon instead of 2. That works. It makes it simple. People may say, well, I want to have them both. Well, you do have them both, so it's okay, and you get 4 attacks with them. I like that they're leadership 7. That's really interesting to me, but I like it because they're going to be in synapse range anyway most of the time. But each time a model in this unit makes an attack reroll a wound roll of 1, if the target is within range of an objective marker, you can reroll the wound roll instead. So, very cool. Very cool. I like it. Then, of course, the Swarm Lord doesn't have as much as, you know, old Bobby G, old robot girly man, but it's pretty good. I mean, he's got his psychic ability. We're going to get into psychic stuff in a little bit. People are still really mad about that because we haven't seen Thousand Suns yet, and they don't know how Thousand Suns are going to play yet. Well, really, we don't know how anybody's going to play yet. We're just making educated guesses based on what we're shown in these previews. But, you know, I think the psychic abilities just being put into ranged weapons instead of having a psychic face could work. That's the way it already works in Kill Team, so I might just be a little biased of, yeah, no, they just have psychic abilities and they can fire them like a ranged weapon. But we'll see. from the little bits that I got to play against Psychic armies and the little bits that I got to play with my Nids, Psychic in 9th was more of, do you get your smite off? No? Okay, moving on. So this gives it a little bit more flavor and a little bit more fluff in a way that I like. And that's another thing we're going to see through all these is there's a lot of fluff. And I love that. Because the coolest thing about 40K to me is still not the game, even though I love the game. The coolest thing about 40K to me is the lore. And that's why I play the game. Because I love the lore, and that turned into a love for the game and for the models and the hobby side of it and painting and everything like that. But ability-wise, start of your command phase of this model's on the battlefield, you gain a CP because he's the commander. Once per battle, after your opponent uses a stratagem, if this model is your warlord and is on the battlefield, it can use this ability. If it does, till the end of the battle, increase that stratagem cost to your opponent by 1 CP. I like that a lot. Hey, if you want to use that one again, it's going to cost you another CP. Rah! I got you. I'm a big, scary monster. I just like that a lot. I think it's really cool and fluffy of the Swarm Lord just being like, you want to try that again? These are the bone swords. To clarify, the bone sabers. Domination of the Hive Mind. While the friendly Tyranids units within 9 inches of this model, that unit's within your army's synap range. There you go. Just, synapse. It's cool. The Rupture Cannon's pretty great. 48 inches means it's going to hit just about everywhere on the board. I like it. It's solid. It's got heavy, but of course it does. I like it. And of course we have the new heavy ability. Again, these are things that they probably should just put on the deal, but it's fine. Weapons with heavy in their profile are known as heavy weapons. Each time an attack is made with such a weapon, the attacking model's unit remains stationary this turn. Add 1 to the hit roll, which means that if they don't move, instead of hitting on 3-ups, they're hitting on 2-ups. Really, really good. Win your command phase for Endless Swarm, up to 2 Endless Multitude units from your army that are within synapse range of your army, or 1 other Endless Multitude unit from your army. And the effect is up to D3 plus 3 destroyed models are returned to each of the selected units. We're going to see something like this as well with Guard later on, but it's really cool to me just the idea of, yeah, you use this and they come back. They come back because we're Nids. I think it's very fluffy. It's very cool. Of course, Devastation of Ball is a great book. You'll figure that I wound up falling for Nids and Blood Angels after reading some of that. But yeah, that's Nids. They're strong. They're good. We didn't get the detachment rules there, but that's why I left this up, so we get the detachment rules here. At the start of the first battle round, select one of the following hyper adaptations to be active for Tyranids. There were people that were like, oh, so this is the way it's going to be for every army. Every army is going to just have 3 options at the start. Like, well, no, this is different. For Space Marines, it was turn. For Tyranids, it's army. It brings back sort of what they had at 9th, at the start of the Tyranids Codex launch at 9th, that was errated to death to remove it, but it brings back some of that, hey, when you see your enemy's list, then you get to choose how you want to adapt, which makes way more sense for Tyranids. I get why they removed it. Tyranids, when the Codex came out in 9th edition, were completely busted, and I understand that. I'm not trying to deny that at all. But this is cool. It's very fluffy. It's very cool. You get swarming insects. You get hyper aggression. Hive predators. Very, very fun. Very, very thematic. I like it a lot. And it means that even with the little bits of rules we're going to have index-wise before the Codex drops for 10th edition, we're going to have all kinds of different options here. And I say all kinds. It's just 3. But it makes a difference, right? You have the one that's good against infantry or swarm. You have the one that's good against monsters or vehicles. You have the one that's good against characters. What kind of list are you up against? Are you up against Guard or Orcs? Well, Orcs is going to be all 3, I guess. Are you up against Guard? Sort of Guard, too. Are you up against a Horde army for Guard? Then go with Swarming. Are you up against a vehicle-heavy list? A lot of Leman Russes go hyper-aggression. Are you up against Gilliman or Mortarion or Magnus or some large individual character that takes up a lot of the punts, Commander Farsight, you might still want to go muster a vehicle. Go Hive. Lots of options. I like it a lot. It's very fluffy, very thematic. Next up, we have Chaos Space Marines. Their stuff is really fun. I like it a whole bunch. So they have Dark Packs as an army rule, which means basically that each time a unit with this ability is selected to shoot or fight, you make a Dark Pack. Whatever pack you can choose, you don't have to. You can choose to, but if you do, you either gain lethal hits or sustained hits 1. And after you make that, after it's resolved its attack, so it gets to finish its attacks first, Then it must take a leadership test. If the test has failed, it suffers D3 mortal wounds. Look, I don't play straight chaos. I'm working on a World Eater's army right now. Look, I would do this every turn. I don't care if it makes me lose. I would do this every turn. It's way too cool for everybody that I can. Each time a unit. So every single unit that attacks, Dark Pact, Dark Pact, Dark Pact. It's really cool. Lethal hits for mortal wounds, sustains hits for exploding sixes. It's great. And of course, again, here we get to see the flip of the card. We get the war gear options for the Legionnaires. And there's a ton of different options, as there should be, but maximum 1 per model. We see that we get to take 1 Aspiring Champion, 4 to 9 Legionnaires. For the actual Legionnaires themselves, their stats are pretty good. Just 2 wounds, but they do get to keep their 2nd wound that they gained in 9th edition, finally, after forever. Dark Pacts is great. Veterans of the Long War is really cool. Anytime that they target an enemy with a melee attack, they get to reroll a wound roll of 1. If that enemy unit is within range of an objective marker, they can just reroll the whole roll instead. Much like the Gene Stealers. It's very cool. And then if they have a Chaos icon, each time the bearer's unit takes a leadership test for the Dark Pact's ability, you can reroll that test. So, Dark Pact, get the chance to reroll as long as your icon bearer is still in there. So make sure they last until the end of the game if you can. So you can keep rolling packs. It's great. It's wonderful. It's amazing. Then we get old Abaddon, old Abby. He's pretty good. Got Dracnian, of course. He's got the Talons. Looks cool. War Master is his ability, of course. Command phase, select 1 War Master ability. We get these here to choose from to the start of your next command phase. This model has that ability, and they're all pretty good. He gives auras for 4-ups. Gives auras for rerolling hit rolls, and he gives auras for rerolling leadership and battle shock tests. Which, again, if you roll with Dark Pacts, you want that, so that's probably what you're going to pick most of the time. And then for himself, each time this model makes a Dark Pact and does not fail, roll 1d6 on a 2-up, you gain a CP. So Abaddon's very good. Abaddon was brought a lot in 9th with other Chaos lists for how good his auras were, and so I don't expect that to change if you're still allowed to bring him as an ally. I expect Chaos Knights will probably still be trying to bring Abaddon the Despoiler, but we'll see. We'll see. Then, of course, the Bale Flamer. Such a cool model. I love it. It's so... The Helldrake. I wanted to see if we had a full picture here of the Helldrake. I'm sure this just takes us to where we could buy it. Yeah. That thing's so cool. But, range only 12 inches, but it is a Torrent Flamer, the Bale Flamer. It ignores cover. It has the Torrent ability. Each time an attack is made with such an ability, that attack automatically hits. So it's wonderful. Very strong. Very, very good. Very fluffy. Very chaos. And then, of course, we have the Flesh Metal Guns. Pretty great. Pretty solid. 3 different options. You select one of the profiles before every attack. It's really good. And then I need to zoom this back out a little. Get a little close there for the data sheets on the Legionaries. But Dark Obscuration, I keep trying to say obstruction, during your opponent's shooting phase, just after aiming and select its target, you pick one of your Heretic Astartes, and they get a stealth ability, which we found out because of some rules leaking that I'm not going to get into too much here, that's a -1. So that's pretty good, -1 to hit. And if your unit's a Nurgle unit, the end of the phase unit can only be selected as a target of a ranged attack if the attacking models within 12. So, pretty cool. Fabius Bile, I've heard that book is great. Night Lords, I've heard so many people talk about how good that is. And then that's Chaos Space Marines. So next up we have Necrons. Their number is Legion, their name is Death. Because I bought the Indominus box, I have a good little bit of Necrons, and I like my Necrons. I haven't played a lot of them. I much prefer my Blood Angels, but Necrons are still really cool, and I think if I had more of the Canoptic side in it, I might enjoy it more, because looking at the rules on those, they're really cool, and I don't have any Necron vehicles. I feel like that probably is also not helping me, but just the warriors themselves, the Scorpec Lord, they're very cool. I like them a lot. So their army rule is really, really good. I know a lot of Necron players on Reddit were like, well, this is terrible. What good is this? But this already counters a lot of different abilities we've seen. Reanimation Protocols is buffed, and They reanimate D3 wounds. If your army fetches Necrons at the end of your command phase, each unit from your army with reanimation protocols with this ability activates it, right? And reanimates D3 wounds every time. Every time you end a command phase. If that unit contains one or more models with fewer than their starting number of wounds remaining, select one of those models, and that model regains one lost wound. If all models in that unit have their starting number of wounds, but that unit is not at starting strength, one destroyed model is returned to that unit with one wound remaining. So you just get to bring one back. Bring one back. If you can keep that unit from getting any more damage that turn, you get to bring another one back next turn. It's really, really strong. It's really good. And then their detachment rule for Awakened Dynasty is while the Necron's character model is leading this unit, each time a model in this unit makes an attack, add 1 to the hit roll. And that may not seem like a lot, but we're going to look at the Necron Warriors real quick here. Their hitting's on 4-ups, right? They're doing pretty good damage. Strength 4, Strength 5. Lethal hits and rapid fire 1. So the Flayer's attacking twice as much if they're within half range, if they're within 12 inches. 4-ups becomes 3-ups, which due to the way that a bunch of the numbers have changed for the way that they've toned down some of the killiness of 10th edition, killiness of 9th edition, I guess, in 10th edition, that's pretty solid. You're hitting more often than, or you're hitting about as often as you're not. Whereas before you were hitting a little bit less than as much as you were. So that's pretty good. And then, of course, each time this unit's reanimation protocols activate, it reanimates D6 wounds instead of D3 wounds, unless it's within range of an objective marker you control, in which case it reanimates D3 plus 3. You just get a guaranteed plus 3. How many units you bringing back? Yeah. The Monolith, of course, looks really good. It has the Wargear options where the 4 Gauss Flux Arcs can be replaced with 4 Death Rays. Death Rays are really solid. The Particle Whip is incredible. 3d6 attacks, hit on 3-ups, strength 8, 2 damage. But the Death Rays with sustained hits D3, doing D6 plus 1 damage. That thing's strong. Strong. And the Eternity Gate ability lets you select one Necron's infantry unit from your army in reserves or on the battlefield. You can then set them up anywhere that's wholly within 6 inches of this model and not within engagement range of enemy units. They can't charge, but you probably didn't want them to anyway unless you were going with like flayed ones, maybe some score packs. But either way, just here they are. So pretty great. Then of course the Doomsday Cannon for the Doomsday Arc. Very solid 72-inch range. Again, hit anything on the board, no problem. D6 plus 1 attacks, strength 15, damage 4. That's a good bit of damage. And of course, it has devastating wounds if it doesn't move. Very solid. Very solid. And then they show the Spear of the Void Dragon. It's got anti-vehicle 2-up. You're just going to wreck a vehicle if you get into range with it. It's very strong. And the stratagem that we got showed was Protocol of the Hungry Void. If one Necron unit from your army that's not been selected to fight this phase, during the fight phase, until the end of the phase, add 1 to the strength characteristic of melee weapons equipped by models in your unit. In addition, if a Necron's character is leading your army, or leading your unit, until the end of the phase, improve the armor penetration characteristic of melee weapon equipped by models in your unit by 1. So, you put your Necron character with some flayed ones, and you're going to just clean house. With a Scorpec Lord, for instance, with Scorpec Destroyers, as they put it, very strong. And this art is just great. It's very cool. Necrons, they're so cool. I've heard so many good things about the Infinite and Divine. It is on my list to read, for sure. But all of these are probably good. I'm assuming. I know this one has been talked up so much to me. But that's Crons. Next up, we have Guard, Astra Militarum, Hammer of the Emperor. They got some cool stuff. So voice of command. If your faction's Astra Militarum, of course, in your command phase, officer models from your army with this ability can issue orders. Each officer's data sheet will specify how many orders it can issue, which units are eligible to receive these orders. Each time an officer model issues an order, select one of the orders below, then select one eligible friendly unit within 6 inches of that officer model to issue it to. At the start of your next command phase, the unit you have selected is affected by that order. Unless otherwise stated, a unit can only be affected by one order at a time. Any order subsequently issued to that unit replaces the current one. If a unit being affected by an order becomes battle shocked, not shopped, they're not getting purchased mid-fight, that order ceases to affect that unit. So, how many orders they can issue is on each officer's data sheet, who's eligible for them, but each time they're ordered, one eligible friendly unit within 6 inches of the officer is ordered. And so if they're battle shocked, they can't be ordered, but otherwise you can give them move, 3 inches to the movement characteristics, fixed bayonets for improving the weapon skill by 1 for melee, take aim by 1 for ranged, first rank fire, second rank fire, attack characters go rapid fire weapons go up by 1. That's incredible. Take cover improves the save, but you can't make it save better than 3 up. Can't make it better than 3 up. Still really, really good. Really good. And duty and honor improve the leadership and objective control characteristics of models of this unit by 1. So there's a lot you can do here. A ton of different options for how you want to play this and how you want to use this. And I think this is going to be really, really interesting to see how it's played. Some of this is really strong. First rank fire, second rank fire for rapid fire, and take cover are both really good. But even like duty and honor can go really well with some units if you want to be able to hold an objective. Move, of course, is always going to be great. And fixed bayonets and take aim are just very good. So that's all great. That's their army rule. They not show the detachment rule here? Not seeing it. That's interesting. They have been showing both. Okay. Huh. Guess we'll see when the index comes out then. I missed that before. I have looked over all of these before so that I could give kind of a brief overview without going into super detail for each one, though I feel like we're still doing that. Cadian shock troops, pretty cool. Got a lot of different options. You know, I almost made the joke. Comment section, you can make the joke for me. I'll give that one to you this time. Next time it gets to be me, but this time it gets to be you. Pretty good options here. 1 shock trooper sergeant, 9 shock troopers, 2 shock trooper sergeants, 18 shock troopers. Pretty solid. I feel like that's probably because of the size of the box and what comes in it, but you know, it's pretty good. They have shock troops, so at the end of your command phase, if this unit's within range of an objective marker you control, that objective marker remains under your control, even if you have no models within range of it, so your opponent controls it at the start or end of any turn. So, sticky objectives, really solid. They have the Voxcaster course, which lets them hand out the order, which is pretty great. Or hand out the stratagem, I should say. I'm sorry. Let me clarify that. The stratagem. Time you target the bearer's unit with a stratagem, roll 1d6, adding 1 to the result if there are 1 or more friendly officer units within 6 inches. On a 5-up, you gain 1 CP. Very good. I like that there's so many different ways to get CP. And then they show off the Baneblade, which is just, it's incredible. It's doing so much damage, as it should. It's a Baneblade, 24 wounds, very solid. Rolling Fortress. Each time a ranged attack is allocated to an Astra Militarum model from your army, if that model is not fully visible to every model in the attacking unit because of this Baneblade model, that model has the benefit of cover against the attack, which is great. Just tanks giving cover to infantry is incredible, and I love that. The Lehman Russ Battle Cannon, very strong, very solid. It's got blast. You're going to be using it a lot. The Volcano Cannon, it's got blast. It's got heavy. It's got 96-inch range. You can shoot somebody else's table at that point. Like, you're good. And then Reinforcements is very, very strong. During any phase, if 1 regiment unit from your army has been destroyed, you can spend 2 CP to bring them back, basically. That's great. That's great, but you can't bring any characters back, so it's very solid. I've heard good things about the Gaunt series. I'm currently listening to the Eisenhorn series and really enjoying it, but I've heard good things about Gaunt's Ghosts. And that's Guard. Guard's pretty solid here. I think Guard is good. I didn't really talk about Necrons either after we finished it, but I think what I said about reanimation protocols kind of like stands out on its own. Necron's going to be fine. Guard is in a really solid place just from what we've seen, but again, we don't know all the rules yet. We don't know how everything's going to interact with each other. We cannot even begin to imagine what the meta is going to be yet, so we need to just take these, enjoy what we get, see what we have, make guesses for sure, but it's not all doom and gloom. You know, it's going to be okay. The game has never really been balanced. It's going to find an equilibrium.